Welcome into PressBox Live. I'm Stan the Fan Charles of PressBox and PressBoxOnline.com. And with me is the old 2%er, 0.2%er, Ross Grimsley, star of Immaculate Grids everywhere. Ross, just so people know, you pitched for the Cincinnati Reds, the Orioles, the Indians. Anybody else?
Montreal.
Oh, Montreal.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
good use. And you get a great rarity score. Luke Jackson hasn't risen to that level of having a rarity score, but he rarely is wrong when it comes to talking baseball. Let me tell you a couple things before we go do our show. And that is, what company has the expertise and technology to make your home substantially more energy efficient, comfortable, and even, this is important, virus-free? Well, it's AJ Michaels Heating and Air Conditioning in Baltimore and Annapolis. Check out their website at ajmichaels.com. And it's a great time now, better than ever, to sign up for Superbook Sports as the college basketball season is on us. Every night, tons of games. They've got odds on all of them. They've got great prop bets. They've got the NFL, the NHL. Trying to think, and they'll have baseball again in the spring when it starts up again. But right now, Superbook Sports. Superbook is the most trusted name in Vegas, and now you can use promo code StanCharles23 or GlennClark23 to score up to $250 with their first bet bonus. Win or lose, they will match your first bet up to $250 with promo code StanCharles23, all one word, with no spaces. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. And we are welcoming in Ross Grimsley and my partner in crime, Luke Jackson. Luke, it sometimes it just comes in and goes out real quick. Apologies there. I knew who you were, even if I couldn't think of it for a split second. Hey, big news for the Orioles today, and kudos go out to Mike Elias. And I'd like to give kudos to John Angelos for selecting Mike Elias, and then not only selecting him, letting him do his thing, which has led to his first win as the MLB Executive of the Year, as voted on by the other executives. Luke, I'll start with you. Your thoughts on the deservedness of this award?
Yeah, I mean, he's done a hell of a job. It's been well documented. And now, the next task for Mike is tackling October, which is a very tricky thing. But based on how he's done in his first 5 years of the job, I don't know if I would bet against him. So we'll see if they can tackle that. And yeah, I mean, it's a deserved honor. And good on him and good on his staff. He put together a really quality staff around him, with guys like with people like Sig Mejdal, Eve Rosenbaum, etc. And the list goes on and on.
And Matt Blood.
Matt Blood. He's put together a really good team around him, and also Brandon Hyde. And he allowed his manager to see the rebuild through. And that tells me a lot about Mike, that he told Brandon at the beginning of the process that he wasn't just hiring him to get through the tough years, that he was going to let him handle the good years too. And he stayed true to his word. That tells me a lot about how Mike operates, what kind of person Mike is. And so kudos to him, and best wishes on much continued success.
Ross, I'm just curious, is what Mike has accomplished now like a golfer that starts off and he learns how to drive the ball real well, but as Luke said, winning the trade deadline and winning in October, is that more like playing around the greens and keeping the score under control?
Well, that's what you want to do in golf. You want to be tough from about 100, 150 in. If you can do that,
that's where you make all the strokes.
Putt and chip. That's the thing. But Mike comes from a background. He was in St. Louis. He was with Houston. He was in scouting, so he had a lot of experience in knowing what to do and knowing what to put it together. And so far, it's been great. One of the big things, and I think I've mentioned this before, is that the minor league system does a lot of things the right way. And that was something
You've pointed that out many times.
Yes.
I know there was some criticism when they let go of certain scouts or didn't really push to re-sign, like a Dean Albany, who was immensely popular here and has done a good job in Philadelphia. But Mike has put together a good crew of scouts.
Well, they have, like I said, they at the minor league system, starting at the very bottom in their winter league or winter Dominican, that type of thing. That they set up that they're going after, and that's something the Oriole organization hadn't done in the past. That's huge now because a lot of your players are from Latin America, coming in from Japan, Asia, Korea, Taiwan, those places. So there's a lot of excellent players out there, and they're going to go and hopefully try to corner that and get those guys. But he's done a great job at that, a great job setting up the minor league system. Obviously hired some people that could get the job done. So tip of the hat to him. I mean, like I said, the next step is to go and it's a step-by-step thing.
Yep.
Basically. And for the Orioles to, everybody, you thought that they had a chance to go deep in the playoffs this year, but it was a little bit different for them. But I don't think they were overmatched in a way. But I don't think it was a surprise. They weren't scared. They went out. They knew what to do because they did it. They just got outplayed.
Yeah.
And they got out. The pitchers, did their thing against them. And it's something, it was a learning experience for everybody. And Mike too, he's, now what's our next step? What do we got to do? And I think they've made the right moves, and possibly they'll continue to do that, hopefully.
Luke made his comment about Brandon Hyde being here for the long haul rather than just being here through the heavy lifting. And then as soon as we got good, going out to get somebody else to manage. I'll believe that entirely after next year. But I think Luke is on the right track there. Yeah. We've seen recent evidence of general managers who hire a guy, and I go back to Theo in Chicago when he was with the Cubs, and if I have the sequence right, hires Dale Sfame, and Sfame after 1 year, I believe, was let go to bring in Rich Renteria, who after 1 or 2 years was let go for Joe Madden. And look at then Renteria went to the White Sox, crosstown, does a good job for 2 years, gets them in the playoffs, and then is undermined by, in that case, it was an ownership decision to bring in sort of a, for lack of a better term, almost brain dead Tony La Russa. And I was a big Tony fan in his heyday. He was the wrong choice at the wrong time for the White Sox. I think it is to Mike's credit that he's seen to stick through with Brandon Hyde, because I think Brandon's got a chance to be here another 8 or 10 years.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Time will tell. The next couple of years will tell what happens. But yeah, I mean, he's to stick with them, and I mean, he's been through some atrocious seasons. Losing 100 games, it's not fun to lose in the clubhouse. No. I don't care who you got on the team. Losing is not fun, and hopefully he gets an opportunity. Then they keep moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, Go ahead, Luke. I mean, he's done a terrific job building the organization, but as you guys mentioned, ultimately as a GM, you are judged not as a seller, but as a buyer. And his first, I would say his first year or so as a buyer didn't go great with the trade deadline buys that he had and some of the offseason trade buys that were just okay. I ultimately, as a GM, you're judged on, do you add the right pieces to your major league club to get your team over the top into a World Series ring. And so now that's the next big challenge for Mike. And I want to say also that golf analogy, that was a real good one, Stan, that you brought up, that, when they first started this project, they're looking at like a massive par 5, and now they're on the green, and
they're around the green,
yeah,
and it's getting it down in 2 strokes, not 10.
Yeah. And so I think that's going to be the challenge this offseason, is figuring out how far you dip into the free agent market, who you trade from your minor league system, who among these veterans do you clear out to make room for another young guy, that sort of thing. Those are the tough decisions that are coming up, and that's ultimately how Mike's tenure will be judged.
You know what's scary is the fact that what was mentioned a while ago about keeping the nucleus of this team together. And now you got these guys for the next, Rushman, Henderson.
Got them for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, 4 or 5.
But to mention that it's going to be hard to keep this team together. Now you go, wait a minute. In the middle of the season, they're having the best season of their lives.
Well, the owner brought that up, and
really,
I think
why would you do that? Why would you do
so unnecessary, because it underestimates the intelligence of fans. The fans sit here and go, I don't know if they. I mean, we all sit here. Luke and I talk about it. Who do you want to keep, Rutschman or Henderson or Holiday? You're going to maybe be able to keep 2 of the 3, and of course, there you lose some other guys that might come along, that their salaries. You can't keep all 25 guys.
No, exactly. But you know what? You can keep. It depends on the Astros went out. They made trades. They signed some guys in free agency. It's a matter of what kind of money do you want to spend, and obviously it's going to be probably on pitching. And that's something that you got to really do your homework on. So that's something I think is important. But that making the comment that was made, you go, wait a minute, are we going to go out and get some top pitching or players? If we can't keep the guys we got, how can we go out and get guys? So that's
just
unless
you make one strong addition, free agent wise, to pitching, I think we're going to technically be at the same place we were at the end of this year. The club clearly needs an upgrade in starting pitching, and that's great. If Kyle Bradish becomes a 1 and you sign a 2, that's great that you got a 1 and 2, and then maybe Grayson becomes a 2, and that's when you're real good. When you have a 1, a 2, and a 2, that's when you can really dominate. But we'll
what do
see.
you do with the closer? What are you going to do about the closer situation?
Well, we can talk about that in a second. I wanted to ask you, though, is this the right time? I think everybody was pretty shocked that David Ross got let go by the Chicago Cubs in such short order. Is there a room for a guy like a David Ross, who I know Brandon was with for a few years in Chicago when he was playing there? Is there room for him to be either on the staff or special assistant to Mike Elias? Is there room for adding somebody like that, Luke?
Oh, that's a very good question. That I couldn't possibly know the answer to. I do wonder about that.
Or chief. I don't know that David wants to do this, but chief advanced scout. The guy who's really in charge.
I would say that there's and Ross would have a much better idea of this than I would. But I would think that there's always room for valuable pieces, right?
Yeah.
You can always carve out a role. You can always carve out a space. But Ross would probably have a lot more experience than I would in this sort of thing, when you're bringing somebody in from the outside who you might not have an exact role for, but you really like them as a person. You really like what they bring to the table, and you almost bring them in without like a defined role, but they sort of carve out a role for themselves over time. Is that something that happens in baseball?
Oh yeah, but I tell you, you got something going here, and so David Ross was with the Giants for a short amount of time, and there were some things that I had heard, but I mean, I don't know him personally. I just know some things I heard that were going on, but you got to be careful. I mean, like I said, you got something moving in the right direction. Would he be a plus? I don't know. I'm not sure, but
First of all, I think he now becomes a strong candidate in Houston and in San Diego almost immediately. Thoughts, both of you?
I'm not a Ross fan.
Okay.
And that's just,
Luke?
that's me.
Luke?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on, how much people, the people hiring are valuing past managerial experience, because it seems like for the most part, that's not a huge criteria at this point for people who are hiring. I know, one of the few candidates I've seen out there with managerial experience is Benji Gill, who's managed in the Mexican League for 6 or 7 years, has won a few titles down there. That's one of the few candidates I've seen with like actual managerial experience. I mean, the way it used to be is that coaches would manage in the minor leagues for some significant period of time to learn the ins and outs of managing, to learn the ins and outs of dealing with personalities on a day-to-day basis, and sort of make mistakes while no one's watching. And then once you get to the big leagues and you can do the job, you've already made those mistakes, and you've sort of already trained for it, already trained for the job. Now, managers are like hired almost to be managed themselves. You know what I mean? That it's and so I don't know. So that was a long roundabout way of saying I don't know what teams are looking for when they're hiring managers anymore. It like last offseason, Texas's owner said, if I'm spending all this money on free agents, I want the best voice in the clubhouse I could possibly get. And he went
and he got one of the best,
Bruce Bochy. I still, we've seen with Chicago this year, Craig Counsell was a very well-regarded manager, and they ponied up the cash to go get him. But that's not what the criteria is for most or all or whatever people who are making these decisions. That was a long roundabout answer and of way of saying I don't know.
All right. So thank you. You could have said that in 3 words. But all kidding aside, getting back to what we were talking about 8 or 10 minutes ago about what this team does in the offseason, we've had another week go by since we've talked, and there's an awful lot of interesting players now, including my personal favorite, Justin Turner, who have declined options or weren't offered options. They've been given the buyout. So that free agent list has really expanded. Ross, have you studied it at all? And do you see anybody in your estimation that would be a good fit for the Orioles? If not, I'm going to give you a homework assignment to do that this week.
I haven't dug into it as deep as I should, but I have seen Manaea, the left-handed pitcher from the Giants.
Sean Manaea,
yeah, Sean. He's somebody that's interesting. I know they've passed out qualifying offers to about 7 guys. So another guy is Hader. I don't know what Josh Hader's situation is, or if the Orioles would be interested in this guy. I'm not really sure, but he's somebody that, I mean, you'd have him for this year, then you'd have him next year with Batista in him. That's a pretty tough 1-2 punch.
Yeah, I'd say. Yeah, that's a pretty good one. And
I think they've offered him and is it Darvish? The Padres have offered 2 of their big free agents, not Waka, but they've offered him the qualifying offer.
It's Snell was the other one.
Snell,
yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
Snell.
So and I really like what Ross said about exploring the free agent market in terms of relievers who have closing experience. If it's not Hader, then someone like a Hector Neris.
Yeah.
Jordan Hicks.
Yeah, and these guys are going to get big multi-year deals. These guys are going to get 2, 3, 4-year deals. These are very successful major league relievers with closing experience, but someone like a Hector Neris to me would be very attractive. Personally, on the starting pitching front, I don't know if I necessarily see the Orioles going in the sort of, have you seen some of these prices that have been floated for a Jordan Montgomery?
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking like MLB Trade Rumors was projecting something like 6 years, 150 for Jordan Montgomery, or it was like 130, something like that. It's a big price tag. Not surprising, but I imagine that they're going to have sticker shock for some of these prices. I would not be surprised if they look more to the trade market for starting pitching help, and then maybe the free agent market for relief help, which they certainly need next year with Batista down. Not that they don't have some internal options. I think Tyler Wells would be an interesting option to close out games. I think DL Hall would be an interesting option to close out games. But I think having a veteran with closing experience to sort of as protection back there, I think would be a very sound investment for this club.
Ross, have you seen Kenta Maeda pitch much over his career?
A little bit. I got information from Shane Turner about him, and plus he is. I'm trying to think of who he's related to that I got information from. But
well, I'll tell you this: I looked him up about 10 days ago, and I talked to Luke about this. You know, the most money he's ever made in the big leagues is something like $3.75 million in a season.
Because he signed that.
Go ahead. Here's a guy, he's 36 years old. If you gave him $8 million a year for 2 years, he hasn't seen that kind of money. That's a nice raise for a guy.
Yeah. And he's a good pitcher.
Yeah, he's a very solid major league pitcher who could, if everything on your team went right, and Means is healthy, and Rodriguez steps up, and Kramer's still good, and Bradish is a 1. All of a sudden, you got him as a long reliever, something that the Orioles really haven't had in this recent iteration of the roster.
They need to stockpile pitching, you know, because I mean, your AAA team, even your AA team, you can get guys that close to Baltimore that can come up, but I mean, we've had a lot of times. I know when I was with the Giants, we did that. We would put guys, we'd get them and put them somewhere just in case, and overpay them to be at that level. And a lot of times I didn't like it, but that was, hey, you're an insurance policy for this big league team. And some guys bought in, some guys bitched and moaned about it. But that's what you want to do. You want to stockpile some pitching, relieving and starting.
You can't have at the end of the season next year, you can't have a decision made like where a Brian Baker becomes part of your postseason roster.
No,
I mean, he was a nice guy when you were building from 53 to 80 wins. After that, you got to do better than that. And, God bless him. I hope he finds a home with Kansas City or Oakland or somebody like that. But not for me.
It's a business. Enough. It's a business.
Let me just get a word in about the Casas Inn, and then we'll continue with a couple more questions with Ross Grimsley and Luke Jackson on our baseball weekly chat here on Press Box Live. The Casas Inn, our guys, we got together about, what's it been, about 4 or 5 weeks ago now that we broke bread at the Casas Inn.
Seems like yesterday.
It was about like 5 weeks ago, yeah.
Ross and his family.
Some of us made it on time.
Yeah, Ross and his family.
We went to the right place.
Ross and his family had the crabs. Luke, what did you had the crab cake, and I had delicious pork chops there at the Casas Inn. So something there for everybody in the family. If you're interested in crabs, you got to call ahead to make sure you can reserve them and check out the price point on them, because they are different levels of price. The whales are like $169 or something like that. The extra large are, I think, $149, and the large are $129 or $139. But that varies. The price point varies. But call ahead at 410-477-1975. Luke and I ordered off the regular menu. We both had crab soup, which was out of this world.
Oh, the crab soup was unbelievable.
Did you have the cream of or the regular?
It was like you recommended it to me. It was
people love
I could have that again for sure.
And I'll tell you one thing that people love there is to have half and half.
You half and half is
crab.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's Ross. But I had those pork chops off the specials menu. Luke had a crab cake. just fantastic all the way around. They've got steaks, chicken, fish, anything you want at the Costas Inn. Great desserts, great beverages, and always TVs around where you can watch your favorite team play any of the sports that are going in action. The Costas Inn, 4100 North Point Boulevard. The phone number 410-477-1975. Glance at that menu at CostasInn.com. We'll finish up our remaining time, guys. Where do you think, the winter baseball meetings are only what, Luke, 3 weeks away, 3.5 weeks away, roughly?
Yeah, the GM meetings are happening right now.
Right.
And the winter meetings are about a month from now.
Yeah. Amazing. Do you expect the Orioles? I think I know Luke's answer and Ross's answer, but do you expect them to pull something off at the meetings this year that's exciting rather than just a Rule 5 guy?
Oh, I think Rule 5 is very exciting, Stan. It's just I can't contain my excitement. No, they've had some really good Rule 5 picks in Santander and Wells. You get us another Tyler Wells, that'll work out. But generally speaking, on Orioles offseason excitement, you're going to bet the under. And so we'll do that again. So yes, it would be nice to have a little excitement. I'll continue betting the under, and I'll continue cashing in.
Ross?
I agree 100%. You look for something.
There was no I don't know. There was no I don't know there.
No, I just don't see it. It hasn't happened. It didn't happen this year during the season when they had an opportunity to do it. And they just they bide their time and just looking for the right deal. They got some some young players they could move. Santander's the guy they could possibly do something, or Mountcastle.
Ross, that's for me the most interesting thing of this offseason is it decision time on some of these guys, these more veteran guys, while other younger kids are ready. They've got a lot of prospects who are basically at play them or trade them.
Here's the essential question with Santander, Luke, is if they do deal him in a deal, let's say they trade Santander and Norby for a really good starting pitcher, with the home runs and production in the center of that order, can you pick it up from, Rutschman a season older, Gunnar a season older, Austin Hayes and Mullins having better years, power-wise, and Mountcastle? Can you pick up the home runs you lose if you subtract Santander out of this?
Well, yeah, I don't think you could take Santander for granted because he's batted third for this team for about 4 years now. Yeah. So you really don't want to take that production for granted. I think he's hit about 110 home runs, 115 home runs for the club. He was a terrific Rule 5 pick by Dan Duquette and his crew. But yeah, would you have to bring in somebody else to replace his production, or do you anticipate like a Heston Kjerstad stepping in right away and being able to provide some of that power? Do you anticipate a Jordan Westberg taking a big step forward and helping you offset some of that production?
What if you traded Santander and a prospect, and then you expecting Kjerstad or Kowser to take the place in the outfield, and then you bring in a DH like Justin Turner?
That's
a pro hitter. Hitter.
And I think you absolutely saw that in the playoffs, they could have used another veteran
hitter,
who's been in those situations before, who's been through the postseason battles in the past. I think that they definitely could have used that type of hitter. Someone like a Justin Turner, I think, would be a really good fit.
Yeah. And 39, but had a really productive year for the Boston Red Sox.
But yeah, I mean, for me, the biggest challenge for Mike is going to be sorting through a lot. He's got a lot of arbitration eligible guys. He's got, I think, 16 of them. And the last time that they were in the competitive cycle under Dan and Buck, one of the big issues they had was that their arbitration guys all got expensive at the same time. And it really didn't allow them a lot of flexibility to do what they wanted to do to supplement the roster. And a lot of times the unpopular decision is the right one with those guys, which is hitting the eject button before they get too expensive and you can't get anything for them. So,
but
yeah,
this organization in this current form they're in
it's
now,
going to be different. Yeah,
it's different because they've got pipeline players
to replace
ready.
them. Yes, to replace them. And so that to me is going to be the most interesting thing is, I think they've got a logjam to ease on position players, and I don't know how Mike's going to do it, but we're going to find out.
I mean, essentially, we lost Manny Machado and got Rio Ruiz for 2.5 seasons.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we'll close it at that. Rio Ruiz reference out of the clear blue. Tomorrow night I'll be back. Tomorrow night I'll be back on. Chris Corman, sports editor of the Baltimore Banner, will join us. I'll be on with him tomorrow night at 7:00. And then next week on Thursday night, us guys are probably going to be on Monday night again. But Thursday night a week, I've got none other than, I got to rethink that because that's up against, no, I'll be on earlier than that. John Eisenberg has written a new book called The Rocket Men about black quarterbacks and what they've done to the view of the NFL and the way they play football. We'll be looking forward to those shows. Again, our thanks to AJ Michaels Heating and Air Conditioning in Baltimore and Annapolis at ajmichaels.com. Thanks again to superbooksports.com, and thanks to the Costas Inn, which is costasinn.com. For Ross Grimsley, Luke Jackson, I'm Stan the Fan, and we shall return shortly. Bye.